It's a story that gives new meaning to the term Rocky Mountain High. Medical marijuana has been around for some time now, but you would think with America's War on Drugs campaign, it would take some real proof to get a prescription. Guess again. Here's our Paul Johnson tonight with a special 16 by 9 undercover investigation.
These may be some of the most expensive snacks you'll ever buy. Their secret ingredient, high-grade pot. And people here in Denver, Colorado can legally come here to get high, whether it's munching on a brownie or rolling a big joint.
There's a movement in America happening right now.
Here at the Ganja Gourmet, there are plenty of different ways to get high.
That's a dominant indica. We've got one of these. We have the sativas.
And business is booming.
All right, $12 out of 20. I think the system is great.
Marty Rapice says he suffers from rheumatoid arthritis.
I've used marijuana before to combat it, and it makes me feel a lot better. Now that it's medical and it's regulated and whatnot, and better quality, I'm sure it's going to make me feel even better.
I have one of the coolest jobs in America, I suppose. I run a marijuana restaurant bar.
Owner Steve Horowitz took a gamble and is now in one of the few growth industries in the U.S. right now.
When the government legalized medical marijuana, I'm sure they had no intention or crystal ball that it was going to explode into a huge industry that it has.
In the city of Denver, there are now more pot shops than there are liquor stores or even Starbucks, more than 300 of them, giving an entirely new meaning to the old catchphrase, Rocky Mountain High. The industry took off here after voters passed a state law to let sick people use marijuana if their doctors signed off on it. Now, there are tens of thousands who say they're sick and have a doctor's note to smoke up.
What I'm most concerned about is the societal hypocrisy that we're engaging in here.
Colorado Attorney General John Suthers has had to adjust to this new reality. He's not a fan, and he wants to slap stiff new regulations on the business.
The vast majority of those people do not have debilitating medical conditions. They just want to smoke pot.
At least 95% are legitimate.
But pro-pot activists like Brian Vicente paint the picture of a system that's about treating real illness, not just getting stoned.
It's pretty difficult to get a medical marijuana card. I mean, you need to show documentation, you need to have a doctor sign off on this, and by and large, doctors take their role seriously.
So we went to see just how hard it is to get a medical marijuana license in the pot capital of the U.S. Wearing a hidden camera, I went to this doctor's office in Denver, full of fit-looking young men on a Saturday afternoon. And I told her I have chronic knee pain, which is true. And without an examination or even having to show medical records, I was approved.
That's all we need to do, that's it.
Okay, very
And
good.
what I'm going to do is give this to the front desk, she'll process this for you and get you out the door. And then I guess somebody told me it's taken some weeks to get it back from the state. Now they're a little overwhelmed.
And indeed, they are, getting about 1,000 applications a month for a form like this, a certificate that now allows me to own a large quantity of pot and hash to treat my knee pain.
So I'm basically good to go here?
We're basically telling 22-year-olds, if you want to lie and you want to cheat, you can smoke marijuana.
I think we're kind of at a tipping point in marijuana policy in our country, and medical marijuana is in many ways kind of forging that path.
Indeed, so-called medical marijuana has already become legal in at least a dozen states, and more states are set to vote on it later this year. And the pro-pot lobby seldom loses at the ballot box. And while it seems like the country that launched the original war on drugs is turning a shade of green, things aren't as simple as they seem. Just ask Vancouver's Mark Emery.
Well, normally I would be extradited to the United States probably right now.
Emery is a longtime entrepreneur and pot activist who pleaded guilty to selling pot seeds in the U.S. and is due to serve a 5-year prison sentence there for the crime.
It's the outdoor Durban Shishkaberry from Nova Scotia. They were describing me as one of the top 50 most wanted drug targets in the world, and the biggest one in Canada.
So Emery is supposed to head south to his jail cell at a time when it's never been easier for Americans to get and smoke pot. In fact, some of the very state initiatives that changed the laws got their seed money from Emery.
There'll be a certain irony to me being in jail for what I've done relative to what's going on outside of that prison I'll be sent to in the rest of America.
This Willy Wonder is one of our popular ones. It has a great taste to it, aftertaste.
Back at the Ganja Gourmet in Denver, the political struggles that enabled this business are a distant memory. Now that there's so much great weed to be smoked, for medicinal reasons, of course.
It just helps me make it through the day where I don't ache and hurt as much.
This is the way to do it. If you're going to do it, regulate it, get the good strains out like this, keep the pesticides out of it.
But their state attorney general sees a much darker side to this.
At my age, I worry about the direction of society, and is this just another indication of the decline of the American civilization? Are we on the downside after 200 years of the rise of our civilization?
I just think that's, I guess, typical government fear tactics. John Suthers has been no stranger to using fear to scare people into accepting his moral view and his policies.
So with this issue still so confusing, some observers say it's probably going to have to be settled at the highest levels of government, possibly the U.S. Supreme Court, the High Court. Well, there's also a medical marijuana program in Canada. It's quietly overseen by the federal government, so you don't have the kind of state-by-state free-for-all that's taking place in the U.S. right now. As Americans vote to free the weed, at least for so-called sick people, the U.S. is becoming a confusing and complicated patchwork of different laws and very different attitudes.
It'll be ironic that I'll be in jail in the United States while the things I championed are going on legally around me.